Hello and welcome to NNR Media's podcast. I am your host, NNR Opinions, joined here with our founder and excellent leader, NFC North Report and NFC Bears, to talk about the Chicago Bears. Say hello, NFC Bears and NFC North Report.
What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up?
So, we all know that coming into the 2020 year after the, we'll just say disappointing 2019 season that the Chicago Bears had after how promising 2018 was, being 12-4, of course, and then falling 8-8. That potentially the quarterback battle or potential quarterback slot could indeed be vacant. Reports came out nearly immediately talking about how the Bears were essentially exploring options at quarterback. Names like Andy Dalton and Derek Carr were being thrown around left and right, to include a couple other players, and then free agency kicked off. I personally was hoping the Bears were going to grab Marcus Mariota. I just thought he was a good fit, and especially if the Bears kept Mark Alfrick, I think it would have been totally perfect. But then, of course, we all know that the Bears traded their fourth-round compensatory pick, a.k.a. a free pick that they got for Nick Foles, and Nick Foles restructured his contract, and now we are here. How do you think that's going to shape up the quarterback battle in Chicago, NFC North?
Well, first off, let me say, I think Matt Nagy made it very clear who he wants to be QB1 in Chicago. In his press conferences, he seemed very excited about the addition of Nick Foles. I think that he was hinting that Trubisky will take a spot on the bench. Despite this, I'm not a fan of the move.
Really?
I think that people forget how valuable fourth-round picks can be. That's the round that Eddie Jackson was drafted. That's the round Tariq Cohen was drafted. Two very, very good players. Jackson, who's now the highest-paid safety in the league. He's gone to numerous Pro Bowls. He made the All-Pro team last year. And to pay someone $14 million to compete for a starting job and potentially trade away a player capable of doing something like Tariq Cohen or Eddie Jackson, I'm not a fan of the move.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this real quick. So, you don't think that giving away a free pick that Chicago had for a quarterback veteran like Nick Foles to maybe light some sort of fire under your current quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, let's say posterior, you don't think that's good for the team at all? You'd have much rather have had that fourth-round pick.
I would have rather had the fourth-round pick and my $14 million.
Yeah, cap space, especially if you're the Chicago Bears, is a pretty big deal. So what about you, NFC Bears?
I do kind of agree with Mac with the fourth-round pick being given. It's just a sore spot for me. I mean, Trubisky, I just don't think he's there all the way. I don't know. I think he just needs the competition. I think Foles, like I said, he's won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia. He has that winning mindset, and I think that could be very beneficial to the Bears because, one, he also has a defense to rely on. I don't remember exactly how good the Eagles' defense was when they did win the Super Bowl, but I think they were somewhat mediocre to where it was fine, with Nick Foles coming in. But like I said, I feel like Foles has a defense to fall back on, so I think that's going to help.
I understand that. You make a good point. And the defense in Philadelphia, of course, it wasn't perfect, as no defense really can be. But the defense did a really good job there of holding opponents like, for instance, the Minnesota Vikings, who were red hot in that NFC Championship game. But so I'm going to give you guys my take on the Nick Foles trade. And I think it's Chicago's, honestly, it's a good move, but it's also a dire move. And here's why it's a dire move for Chicago. Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace are obviously going to be on the hot seat after this season if it turns out like last year, especially if you have a quarterback playing like Mitchell Trubisky did in 2019. It's sad for Bears fans, obviously. I know when you're sitting there your whole life and the best quarterback you've seen play statistically is Jay Cutler is a little frustrating. But I think the nuance and the new presence of a quarterback in Chicago who has actually won a Super Bowl. He wasn't a backup when he won that Super Bowl. He came in for an injured Carson Wentz, who was arguably the MVP of that season. And totally, it just took everybody by storm. And let's not forget, the year after that, he took over again Well, so he started the first couple games. Carson Wentz came in. Carson Wentz went back out with an injury. And what did Nick Foles do? Came back in, brought some life back into the reign Super Bowl champions, took them to the playoffs where we all know what happened from there. Nick Foles led a game-winning drive, beat Chicago, of course, after the double doink. But, I mean, still, the man has playoff games. He has playoff experience. He's won a Super Bowl. He's a Super Bowl MVP.
Another question I have for you guys is, would you rather have Foles or Cam Newton?
Before I address the Foles or Cam Newton thing, Alex Smith was traded for a 4th-round pick who was a former number 1 overall pick. And not only that, he never actually technically played in a Super Bowl. Let's not forget he got benched for Colin Kaepernick that year that the 49ers lost to the Baltimore Ravens in Ray Lewis's final year. So I think getting a 4th-round pick for a Super Bowl MVP and a Super Bowl winning quarterback is pretty good. And that's again, that is my unbiased NFL opinion. I don't want to segue too much. North Report, what do you got to say?
Discussing what? The Cam or did the Bears overpay for Foles?
Give me your Foles, and then after we do Foles, we'll talk about Cam.
I don't think. Let me talk about Cam first while I think about the Foles. I don't think that Cam would have been a good fit in the system that Matt Nagy's trying to assemble, much less the locker room that's been established in Chicago. I think Cam is a diva. I think he's past his prime. And frankly, since he hurt his shoulder, I don't think his throwing mechanics are the same. I think Matt Nagy wants an athletic quarterback, which Cam fits, but he also wants an accurate quarterback. After he won that MVP season, he hasn't been as good as Tyrod Taylor.
I mean, that's a very valid point. And to be totally honest with you, I've been debating doing a post about if Cam Newton actually being the real reason why they have been faltering the past couple years. I do like what you're saying, though, North Report, about Cam Newton. I don't think Cam Newton in Chicago would be a good fit either. I like Cam Newton. I think he's one heck of an athlete. I really do. He's a winner. But I think the style of offense that Matt Nagy wants to run involves something that Cam Newton just wouldn't be a part of. So, I mean, that's how I feel about Cam Newton. But so, do you think Cam Newton would be a better fit for Chicago than Nick Foles, Bears?
Personally, no. He was injury prone.
That's a big hitter.
Season. I mean, he didn't even make it for one game. So, I mean, I wouldn't have chosen, or I wouldn't have chose Cam Newton at all. I mean, like I said, he was just injury prone. I mean, I do agree with NFC North Sport. He is a diva, and he's cocky. I mean, he's not cocky. I mean, he's cocky, but he deserved to be cocky when he was winning, and he was breaking a few records and stuff like that. I mean, he was great. But like I said, I just don't want the energy in the locker room. I just think it's toxic, personally.
So, again, as we are all talking about Nick Foles, obviously the big question, too, for me is Nick Foles is rejoining a coaching staff to which he has had tremendous success with, though not all together entirely, but with them separately through his career. Matt Nagy, of course, was with Doug Peterson and Andy Reid in Philadelphia when Nick Foles took over for an injured Michael Vick and threw 7 touchdowns in one game. They went on to go to the playoffs to lose to, I believe, the Saints. And then Nick Foles went on to play for teams like the Rams and Kansas City before returning back to Philadelphia, where he then, of course, we all know the Super Bowl story, but he was with John DeFilippo. And John DeFilippo is, of course, now in Chicago as the quarterback's coach. And now Bill Lazor is also in Chicago. So all of these coaches that are now in Chicago, Nick Foles has had tremendous success with, whether it be throw 7 touchdowns in a game, or whether it be brought a team either back to the playoffs after looking like they weren't even going to get there, or took over for a team, took them all the way to the playoffs and won a Super Bowl. So with that being said, North Report, do you think Nick Foles rejoining a coaching staff that he has broken NFL records with and won Super Bowls with is going to make him maybe a little more worth that 4th-round pick?
Bringing in DeFilippo and Bill Lazor, I think that Matt Nagy, at that point, believed that Mitchell Trubisky would be QB1 going into the 2020 season. I think Trubisky is set up for success. I think they should have given him another year. I think they should have said, look, you were the number 2 overall pick. We are sticking with you. They should have given him support as they did with the hirings I think that DeFilippo is either the best or one of the best quarterback coaches in the NFL.
I agree.
And I'm still not a fan of the whole Nick Foles trade, Nick Foles contract restructure. Nick Foles, I'm going to compete with Mitchell Trubisky to maybe get the starting job.
So I'm going to stop you right there, NFC North Report. Our time to win is now, and not a lot of Bears fans they don't know that. They're not grasping that. Our time to win is now. We signed Khalil Mack. We signed Robert Quinn. They only have a limited time because defensive players, they get banged up, man, and you can't have a healthy team for a while. So that's why I feel like bringing Nick Foles also was the greatest thing possible for the Bears, and I feel like that's why they're not selling with Trubisky. Trubisky needs to sit. He doesn't have enough college playing experience. What did he start? Only 12 games, I believe it was. So, that's what I think the big deal is here.
Well, to support you and to argue against you, I mean, I think the obvious option is to start Foles, and that's just. And really, my outside perspective on that whole thing is even if Mitchell Trubisky starts week 1, if he is named the starter or whatever, regardless of if he wins a training camp or preseason, what have you, at some point during that season, he's going to have his bad game, as he always does. Or by halfway through the season, he's going to get hurt. I mean, he's done it the past 2 years, almost like around the exact same time frame. And what's going to happen then? What's going to happen if Nick Foles comes in for an either A, injured, or B, it's slacking entirely quarterback named Mitchell Trubisky? What's going to happen? Do you think Nick Foles is just going to squander the opportunity? Or do you think he's going to be like, well, they traded for me. I got all these coaches that I won with, and I got nothing to lose. And what's the worst that can happen?